Chapter 541 ... Edith suddenly opened his eyes. Was it a dream? He had dreamt of a time from his past life, one of the earliest moments after he had joined the cavalry. It was the first time he had a conversation with Kishir. He remembered beginning to learn various things from Kishir, starting with a sword. Those memories had blurred long ago due to the passage of time. However, the recollections that resurfaced in his dream were incredibly vivid, as if they had occurred just yesterday. Yudhir had experienced this sudden clarity of forgotten memories multiple times before. Was that also among the memories I had lost? But it seemed unlikely that he would forget something as trivial as that. The texture of the practice sword that he gripped in his palms, Kishir's voice whispering in the dark, and even the slight upward curl of Kishir's lips all appeared in his mind with unsettling clarity. Yes, there had undoubtedly been such a time. A time when nobody had died yet, when his second gender hadn't manifested, and when he was wholly focused on learning new things. Back then, Yudhir had felt that adapting to his radically changed living environment was somewhat against his nature. But looking back, he thought that might have been the most peaceful period of his life. Yudhir rose, feeling as if his chest had become slightly lighter. The fragrant and sharp aroma wafting from the aromatic pouch placed next to his pillow tickled his nose. Was the Empress's aromatic pouch said to bring good dreams the cause of today's dream? Though seeing Kishir in a vision twice yesterday likely had the most significant influence, the pouch might also have played a role in bringing forth a trivial yet peaceful memory from many. If it's a good dream, then it's good in its own way. Yudhir of the past would never have admitted it, but the present Yudhir knew that he had been quite enamored with the first sword he had touched. Although he was aimless and unaware of his own limitations back then, training was as close to his true calling as anything could be. And he had realized that through Kishir. Yudhir got out of bed and stood on the floor. He was the only one in the room as his chamber was right next to Kishir's. As he walked towards the still dark window, he saw the palace's rear view. The stunning imperial garden, breathtaking from any angle, failed to stir any emotion in him. His eyes were unconsciously searching for something else, something hidden deeper. I remember there being a small training ground somewhere over there during my previous stay. Ah, there it is. Was it because of the dream about training? For some reason, he wanted to move, even if just a little, right then. Spotting a vacant lot in a corner of the garden, Yudhir didn't hesitate to change his clothes. Slipping out unnoticed was no big deal. The training ground, located a short distance away from the palace, seemed quite small compared to those designated for the cavalry and the imperial knights. Had he not stayed here for a few days before, he would never have known such a place existed. Yudhir entered the ground holding a decorative sword he had casually taken from the palace. Then he stopped in his tracks upon discovering a person who had arrived there before him. ... Kishir was swinging his sword in silence at the center of the training ground. Despite the chilly weather, just enough to see his breath, he donned only a thin layer of training clothes. Yet he didn't seem cold at all. From his shoulders, as he practiced one move after another with a wooden training sword, heat emanated, creating a mirage-like haze. He swung, sliced, lunged forward, and stabbed. Then, with fluid motions, he kicked off the ground and circled back to make another powerful slash. Despite the simplicity of these actions, there was not a moment of hesitation. His movements flowed smoothly like unstoppable water, yet carried the weight of a massive mountain. Yudhir had known that Kishir practiced his swordsmanship every dawn when they shared a room in Tenno. But seeing him now from the outside, he somehow appeared both unfamiliar and new. Unconsciously tracing Kishir's movements with his eyes, Yudhir suddenly realized why they felt so familiar and stiffened. That is, if he was not mistaken, these were the save movements that appeared in the basic swordsmanship manual, the ones Yudhir had tirelessly repeated in his recent dream. Just as Yudhir was planning to go down to the training ground and replicate those movements, Kishir completed his final move. Lowering the sword he had held high, he turned around. His eyes, which had been frighteningly focused and devoid of emotion, changed the moment they met Yudhir's. Yet somehow he felt slightly different from the usual Kishir. Swinging a sword around this hour, did you sleep well? That peculiar atmosphere quickly dissolved the moment he spoke. Yudhir looked up at the approaching man and nodded. Yes, I felt a bit stiff, so I came down. How did you know about this place? I passed by it when I was here before. Ah, you did? You have a keen eye. Is this a place you have always used for training? Yes, that's right. I used this place often until I left the palace. I even trained Nathan here. Kishir looked around, smiling. Normally, such physically demanding training would be impossible, so we couldn't have had a training ground. But I insisted on having one, even if it's small. That explained why the training ground, despite being part of the palace, was so small and inconspicuous. Kishir kindly offered to lend Yudhir a wooden training sword since he had finished his own practice. Yudhir politely declined and assumed his stance with his decorative sword. It was the first move of the same basic training manual Kishir had been practicing earlier. As he swung the sword, Yudhir felt an unwavering gaze on him. Maybe it was because he had just dreamt about the past, but for some reason the sensations overlapped. Yudhir shook off the weighty feeling clinging to his limbs and deliberately put more force into his moves. At first, he struggled to concentrate, but as he continued, his surroundings gradually faded from his consciousness. After precisely 10 repetitions, he lowered his sword and took a deep breath. When he opened his eyes, there stood Kishir, as still as if he had stepped out from the past. Suddenly, something deep within his chest ached. Last night, I had a strange dream. In that odd atmosphere, Kishir quietly spoke to Yudhir. I don't remember it well, but one thing is certain. I think I was watching you, just as you are now, swinging your sword. You followed the swordsmanship booklet to the letter. What? For a moment, Yudhir felt as if something heavy had abruptly settled upon him. This is the first time I have remembered a dream featuring you after waking up. Could it have been a premonition? Yudhir licked his lips a few times, as if lost in thought, finally struggling to speak. No, it probably wasn't. Why are you so sure? Because I had the same dream. Kishir remained silent for a moment. So, is there another instance of a connection similar to before? It probably was. He should have anticipated such an occurrence since Kishir had a history of calling the name Yudhirian in his sleep. However, he couldn't help being surprised when it actually happened. I suppose that seems likely. Sharing dreams, huh? Considering what happened yesterday, it's not that surprising. It felt like it wasn't my dream. So, maybe this connection originated from you to me. The man, who had been quietly speaking, suddenly looked at Yudhir's face and shut his mouth, humming thoughtfully. A smile soon appeared on his face. The idea that my assistant was watching me, even in a dream, is suddenly so touching that I feel like crying. Do you often dream of me? Yudhir had indeed often dreamed of Kishir, but it wasn't the Kishir of the present. I suppose I should try to dream more often of being with you since I can't beat you at it. You don't need to make such an effort. Yudhir sighed and replied. The man, who had chuckled softly, approached and put his arm around Yudhir's shoulder. If you have finished practicing, Let's go inside and have breakfast. We also need to think more about treatment options for you. You could catch a cold if you cool down too much. Guided by the arm pulling him, Yudi began to walk. When he glanced up, he no longer felt the strange atmosphere that had surrounded the man earlier.